welcome to episode 42 of the Animorphs read-along broadcast. Today we are talking about book 36, The Mutation. I'm kind of at a loss for words with this book. Visser kind of left me on this Animorphs high, and I was like, I can't wait to read the next book. And then I read the back of it, and I was like, wait. And then I read the book, and I was like, wait, who thought this was a good idea? The Nartek plot is so stupid that I almost don't even want to dignify it by talking about it. I hated it. And more than just the Nartek thing, everything about this book felt really disjointed to me. At the beginning, there's this dying Hork-Bajir in Cassie's barn who's been experimented on. While I kind of rolled my eyes at the idea of Visser 3 wasting his time and resources on this kind of shenanigans, I thought this was an okay foundation and an okay starting place for a story. The Pemalite ship was never that great of a plot device to begin with, but bringing it back a second time really felt like a mistake to me. This book just felt kind of clunky to me, with the mutated Hork-Bajir and the Seablade and the Pemalite ship and then this bizarre underground Atlantis situation. There was a lot going on, but none of it was particularly great. Fortunately, even the worst plotted Animorph books often have good character work, and this book fits into that mold. So we're just gonna forget that whole Nartek thing ever happened and talk about some of the good stuff in this book. In chapter 1 of this book, Jake says, "We're not supposed to like it, this power we have. We being me, my best bud Marco, my cousin Rachel, Cassie, and Tobias and Axe. We're not supposed to like it, but mostly I do." This quote to me is the best thing that happened in this entire book. Jake's technically talking about the morphing power, but I think the statement is coded with a broader meaning. It's not just about the morphing power, it's about the situation they're in. They're not supposed to like being warriors, but mostly Jake does. Applegate herself described Jake as someone who develops a kind of addiction. He doesn't get high off of it all like Rachel, but he needs it just the same. It reminds me of back in book 22 when Rachel and Jake are arguing, and she says, "What do you think is going to happen to you when this is all over, Jake? You're going to go back to being a mediocre basketball player and a decent student? You're not even in high school yet, and Visser 3 would trade his blade ship for your head on a stick." I love that part, so I have it memorized. It's fine. Rachel had a point then, and she really has a point now. Being the leader of the Animorphs has become Jake's identity. Marco's the class clown, Cassie's the empathetic healer, Rachel's the brave one, Jake is the man in charge. And I think it's becoming increasingly difficult for him to separate who he was or is or will be outside of this war. This book also reminded me a lot of book 11 and book 16, which were both books where Jake made a lot of bad decisions and nearly got his teammates killed. You can see a real growth in this book. At the end of the book, Jake says, "My own mistakes would keep me awake at night for a while to come, but I've been in charge for a while now. I'd gotten past thinking I would always be right." This is a very different character from the Jake we knew back in book 11 and book 16, who agonized over every mistake. Jake also admits that he kind of likes when Axe calls him Prince sometimes, and that he feels pride in what they do as a team. Jake still suffers. His brother is still a Yeerk. There are still a lot of things that suck about being an Animorph, but there's also the subtle contentment, I think, in this book, where Jake is okay with his place in the world, and to a certain degree, this is what he was born to do. One of my favorite things about Jake books in general is getting to be inside his head and see the ways that he looks out for his people. When they're discussing this mission and deciding what to do, he says, "There were problems here for me, as the leader of this bunch of tired, stressed out misfits. Tobias hated going into the water. Marco wasn't convinced it was necessary. Cassie was taking it all personally. Fairly typical. At any given point on any given mission, maybe half the team was going to be difficult in one way or another. Including me, of course. Maybe especially me." I've said before, the wheels in Jake's head never stop turning, and I think this kind of plays into what Applegate described as an addiction. He's always thinking because he has to be, but then there comes a point when he can't do anything else. There were plenty of little things I did like about this book. Little touches like Cassie getting all vengeance-y over the Hork-Bajir, Rachel holding out her arm for Tobias to land on, Axe getting offended that the Nartek didn't want his genetic material, Marco's various mentions of his new stepmom, and the Orca scenes where they were fighting the Seablade and getting blown apart by dragon beams and nearly dying. But the second half of the book, just no. I guess I kind of thought that Visser would be a turning point for Visser 3, as far as maybe no more harebrained schemes. But this book and Visser 3's general obsession with the Pemalite ship kind of represents the worst of his scheming, so I guess he did not learn his lesson. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up. This was a book with a pretty good start and a really, really disappointing finish, in my opinion. The next book is book number 37, The Weakness. If you want to keep up with this read-along, subscribe to this channel or follow me on Twitter, and I will see you on Thursday.